The Residential Homestead Exemption application is located on our website, tad.org, under Forms, then Homestead Exemption. You do have a duty to notify the appraisal district if your qualifications change or your right to the exemption ends. You will need to complete all applicable parts of the form, which includes signing and dating it. Please include all required documentation before submitting your application. An important information page is located at the end of the application that provided answers to the most frequently asked questions regarding the application. Most property information required on the application can be found on our website, tad.org. Before filling out the application, please know that spaces on the application with asterisks are optional, although they will help in your application being processed faster. All applicants will need to provide the owner name or names, mailing address, and their date of birth. The fields to the right, such as account number, are optional fields that do not have to be filled out but are helpful if you are able to do so. Next, you are asked to fill out information about the property that you are claiming for the homestead exemption. If your residence is a manufactured home, please provide the make, model, and serial label number. You should also refer to the important information page at the end of the application for additional required information. Next, indicate which marital status applies to you. If you are currently separated from your spouse but not legally divorced, please select a married couple. Separate individuals are two or more unmarried individuals who have separate ownership interests in the property. Each separate individual that owns and occupies the residence must fill out an application and provide their respective percentage of ownership interest. Begin filling out the owner information section by specifying the tax years for which you are applying and answering if you own and live in the property. Next, enter the date that you began occupying the property as your primary residence. An applicant also needs to indicate whether or not they are claiming a homestead exemption on another property inside or outside of Texas, and if they own other residential property. Applicants must also list the name of the county and the property address for any residential property that they currently own. The next section establishes the type of ownership that the applicant has in the property and how the property is being used or occupied. If the following options do not apply to you, then you can skip this portion of the application and move on to the next section. If a court record or recorded deed specifically identifies you as an owner of the property, then select yes and provide the record number of the document. If the ownership document does not specifically identify you as the owner of the property, then select no and refer to the important information page at the end of the application for additional instructions. Cooperative housing provides an exclusive right to occupy a property because the applicant owns stock in a cooperative housing corporation. This is a rare circumstance and most applicants will mark this as no. Next, indicate if the property is income producing. The income producing portion of a homestead should be solely dedicated to income production, and that portion of the property is typically not lived in by the owner. Home offices that are used for personal use or in order to work from home instead of your employer's office are typically not considered to be income producing. However, some examples of income-producing property include rental homes or a bed and breakfast. Other examples may be converting a garage into an office in order to meet with clients, converting a bedroom into a studio for dance lessons, or building a stable on the property for a horse riding school. If you have dedicated a portion of your entire homestead to an income-producing use, please select yes and enter the percentage of property used to produce income. Otherwise, select no. This section asks for the number of acres on the property. As previously mentioned, most required information can be located on tad.org by searching for your property. The last portion of this step informs the applicant of the requirement to provide a copy of their Texas-issued driver's license or Texas-issued personal identification certificate with the application. It is also required that the driver's license or Texas ID match the address of the property where the homestead exemption is being claimed. You may request a waiver of the matching address requirement if you are one of the following: an active duty service member of the U.S. Armed Forces or spouse thereof, hold a driver's license issued under Transportation Code Sections 521.121C or 521.1211. You are currently residing in a facility that provides health, infirmity, or aging, or a certified participant in the Texas Attorney General's Address Confidentiality Program. To receive a waiver, please provide the specified documentation to support your request. If you do not qualify for a waiver and your address does not match, then we recommend waiting until you are able to update your driver's license or Texas ID before submitting your application. Next, select which exemptions that you wish to claim. The first exemption listed is the Residence Homestead Exemption. This is rewarded to all applicants who meet the qualifications of a homestead exemption. The other exemptions will be specific to each applicant and may require additional documentation. A brief description of the exemption qualification requirements and required documentation is provided on the application, and additional information can be found on the information page at the end of the application. You should select each exemption that you intend to claim with this application. In order to transfer a tax limitation from a previous property, the applicant must be either a disabled person, age 65 or older, or the surviving spouse thereof. An applicant may transfer specific homestead exemptions if the applicant is a qualified surviving spouse of either a 100% disabled veteran, a partial disabled veteran with a donated residence homestead, an armed forces member killed in action, or a first responder killed while on duty. Any applicants choosing to transfer a tax limitation or exemption must provide address information of their last residence homestead. Additional information will be required if the applicant's previous residence homestead is located outside Tarrant County. Next, be sure to read the notice regarding penalties for making or filing an application containing a false statement. Afterwards, sign and date the application. If the application is for a married couple, then only one signature from either spouse is required. Keep in mind, for separate individuals, each owner that occupies the residence homestead must make a separate application and provide their respective percentage of ownership in the residence. The final step is to review your application. Make sure you have provided your name, mailing address, date of birth, and contact information. Check the answers you provided in steps 2 and 3. Remember, you must select at least one exemption type and sign and date the application. Be sure to include a copy of your Texas driver's license or Texas ID and any other required documentation necessary to support your exemption claim. You can submit the application either by mailing it to the address provided at the top of the application or by dropping it off at the TAD office. If the lobby is closed, you can place the application in an envelope, then insert it in the drop box just outside of the front doors. Please be aware that applications are not accepted by email, fax, or other forms of electronic submission. Please allow 30 days for your application to be processed. You will be notified by mail if your application is denied or modified. Thank you for visiting tad.org.